My birthday is January 18th, 1927. I was born, I would say, in just New York City. Manhattan.
Manhattan, okay.
Manhattan. I was in the German town of 86th Street on the east side of Manhattan. Well, I went to school in what do you call Catholic school until in 91st Street.
Right, but do you remember December 7th, 1941?
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
Sure.
What do you remember about that day?
Well, see, I'll tell you, the thing that was I knew about it is my one brother-in-law was marrying my sister. My sister's future brother-in-law. He was marrying my sister, and he was being drafted. He was being drafted for the 1 year. So you were supposed to take military service for 1 year because we weren't at war. Mm-hmm. Of course, they didn't have the facilities to handle the people, so they were going to rotate them on a basis of 1 year, and you'd get all the training in 1 year. Well, what he did was he was being married in November, and he said, I'm getting married. So they said, they said, okay, because the war wasn't on. They said, we'll draft you on January 5th. Now, we weren't in the war. So before the war started, my brother-in-law, my future brother-in-law, got married to my sister. So that was one of the big things. But everything was announced by extras in newspapers.
So there's December 7th, 1941. The United States is attacked by Japan.
It was a shock more than anything, and before everything was imagined, everybody was in the service before you know it. I mean, my second brother-in-law was in. He was in the armed guard that I was in.
Ah.
He was in the armed guard. That's why I went in the armed guard.
So you decided to enlist.
Yeah.
And tell me, you mentioned the fact that you wanted to get into the Armed Guard of the Navy. What is that?
The Armed Guard of the Navy is a gun crew that's on merchant ships in convoy to Britain, to save Britain from collapsing. We were bringing the supplies over to Britain. And like the convoy I was in was 70 ships protected by destroyers and DE boats. And the Germans were after those supplies, of course.
When you enlisted, where did you go to boot camp?
I went to up here in Seneca Lake. Seneca Lake? Yeah. Sampson.
Sampson, yeah. Correct, yeah.
Sampson, yeah. I was in there for 6 weeks. I'll tell you this, and you'll get a laugh out of it. I can't swim. I can't swim, never could. And I went up there, and they were supposed to teach me how to swim. Well, they were the poorest damn teachers there were. They didn't. I could jump into 15 foot of water and get to the ladder, but I couldn't swim. I mean, I wasn't afraid to jump into 15 foot of water, but a guy would have a stick if, he'd pass it out if you needed it, and to get to the ladder to get out of the pool. But we used to jump into the pools, roll over and onto rafts and everything, and they'd have you doing different things. I could always do those things. That was no problem. I knew where the raft was in the place, so I knew I could get. But in most cases, that particular raft wasn't in 15 foot of water. It was just a raft out there. And how quick can you get to the raft? Save yourself.
But did you eventually learn how to swim?
No, I have never learned. I thought as long as they have that life preserver, I'll have one when I go over, and I'll survive. I'll survive one way or another, no matter what. I'll tell you, they put me on guard duty. Don't let anybody in at this particular point that I was in, and I had a booth, and it was pouring like hell. I mean, I never seen rain come down, even in New York City. I never seen rain come down as heavy as it was that night. It was after 12 o'clock at night. And I'm on guard duty. And I said to the guy, I stopped the guy with the car, and I said, get out of the car and come in front of the headlights, or you ain't getting in this place. You know, so he says, do you know who I am? It's pouring rain. And I got foul weather gear on me. I'm okay. I stepped out of the boot to talk to him. He says, do you know who I am? I'm the commander of this base. I says, I don't give a damn who you say you are. You're going to get in front of those headlights or you ain't going into this base. So the guy says, I'll do this. He was threatening me, you know. I says, you could go jump in the lake. I says, I don't believe you. So of course, he couldn't do anything about it when he finally got. What could he do? I was protecting the base.
Sure.
And he had to get up. And he got drenched. He didn't have a raincoat. You know, he didn't have a good thing. He just got out with a suit on, you know, a military outfit on, and I didn't. You know, I said, but I mean, for being in New York, I don't care who you say you are. You're not going in. So he was wild at me.
No repercussions at all.
No repercussions. I never had anything from that. Yeah. Nobody even even knew about it. Like,
did you salute him?
No, I didn't salute him because, as far as I was concerned, there was a lot of baloney. I mean, I don't know what he did. Well, I went to the armed guard, and then we went to service. We did drills on how you get to what do you call a machine gun or anything like that we used to use, because eventually we went and they had balloons, planes pulling the balloon over, you know, and the guys firing at the thing, and they had to watch. Well, the guys got caught. They were looking at the plane, and you were supposed to shoot at the balloon he was pulling. So I was, well, don't you know you gotta shoot? You know they do 20 millimeter, 20 millimeter at a plane. You know, at the plane, you can hit the plane. They're giving the practices on what he's pulling in the air. And they had to slam people's guns. You know, when they realized people who were watching, you knew that they smacked the gun from where the guy was, whoever he was pointing. He was pointing the damn gun at the plane, pulling the chute.
Friendly fire, man.
So nothing ever happened. I mean, no, we never had a mistake. Of course, somebody knocked the guns right off. You know.
And for the camera, what's a 20 millimeter gun kind of kick give you? What is that like?
Well, it has a little jolt, you know, but they're all mounted and it's strapped down. And sometimes the barrels get too hot, depending on how much you push out. So then you have another barrel in water that you pull out and put on there.
How many people would be on a gun?
Well, two people, just two people.
Just 2 people.
But just 2 people on any gun. Because see, we only had about 35 guys, though, including the lieutenant. We had a signalman who had to be able to signal with the lights and everything like that, so that you didn't communicate with why we'd be using, the guy would be using the signal lights to tell them what we're doing or not doing or anything like that, you know. So as nobody could pick up any what we were pushing on information.
So you were trained on a 20 millimeter, and after you got done with that training, what was your next assignment? Where did you go from there?
That's just that idea. We did some drilling on. We had we had a 3.5-inch gun on each end, on the bow and on the stern of the ship. So we
What
could.
kind of ship was it?
It was a merchant ship. It was a Liberty.
Liberty ship.
It was a Liberty ship.
Gotcha, okay.
And the reason why it was the Carol Lombard was the wife of Clark Gable. She got killed in a crash for raising savings bonds. She got killed in a flight in a 42.
Oh dear.
So then, they didn't name ships just like Carol Lombard just for the heck of it. But because he had been killed for raising savings bonds, they had to do something. So they made the ship in 42.
So you were on the Carol Lombard.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
I was,
That's a great story.
then I went out the East Coast and come back to the West Coast.
Embarked from
Well, we out of Baltimore, Maryland,
Baltimore. Okay.
Baltimore, and we went out, and then we formed this convoy,
Okay.
and we wind up with 70 ships, and we head across the Atlantic, and we get out, and we get to a certain point, and then they break up the convoy, and they sent, I'm just guessing, 10 ships went to Russia in the Arctic. They were supplying the Russians with over the back, and with 20 for Britain. 20 ships were going for Britain, and the other 20 we dropped off in the Mediterranean. I had a deck cargo on my ship, plus everything else. We went to India. And we went on the Ganges River. And you had to go into the city, you got to go 70 miles up the river. So you got to wait till it's high tide because we had a lot of waste on the ship. We were sunk in the water. We had to wait till it was high tide for us to get up the 70 miles and then have them unload the ship that we had. Because we had deck cargo, we had 2.5-ton trucks on the deck, plus everything else that was imaginable. And the only way you could walk from the front to the back was on wooden steps that went all the way from you ran between that and the sea, because the deck cargo interfered with everything. You couldn't run. And like when we got in the Gulf, we got in the Red Sea, the thing was so warm, hot in the Red Sea. I slept under the trucks on the deck. And you could see the vultures would land on the roof of the what we would call the crow's nest, and they going for a ride down they're going for a ride on the ship. They're just sitting up there, but actually vultures only goes after the dead. They don't go after the living.
Did you guys run into any German U-boats? And I know that. Do you remember seeing any action?
Well, they had us. They were dropping depth charges when we were going over. When originally the DEs would order destroyers. They'd run in between. When you're in a convoy, you have a mile. The ship ahead of you is a mile in front of you, and a mile on each side. That's the way they say. So you are not far from each other. And the one thing you can't do, you can't lose, if you lose power, you have to drop back and get out of the line and go to the back. Now, if you're important, they would never drop a troop ship back. A troop ship would have to be escorted, if there was any number of men on there. But cargo, it was, they could lose it if they had to. So the ship would just drop back, and he used to say, I hope this damn thing keeps running because I don't want to be dropping back. And then, because you're a sitting duck. I mean, you ain't keeping up with the convoy. You're on your own. You know what I mean?
And your job on the Carol Lombard, you were manning the munitions. I mean, you were artillery.
Yeah, on the bow. Well, that's what I used to do. And we used to have 4-hour shifts, 4 hours on and 8 hours off. And we did that, and we switched shifts as time went on, you know. So sometimes you were on at 4 o'clock, from 12 to 4, and then sometimes you were on 4 to 8, and we'd come off. You come off at 8, that was very nice because they were cooking all of these, and you could always have as many pancakes as you wanted, and when you got through with that. And the fresh air you'd be hungry enough that you'd eat a double layer of pancakes after you were on 4 to 8. When we were in convoy, the waves would hit the bow, and that's where I was always on the bow. And I was always spying with the glasses and everything. And when sometimes they hit the bow, they would drive back 200 feet over you. You know, we had foul weather gear.
Yeah.
Would come over you. So when it got that way, I'd say, call the bridge and tell them we're going to adjourn to the flying bridge. So the guys would call up and tell the bridge, we want to go to the flying bridge for a safer place, because the water was coming back 200 feet. Well, we have 3 holes in the front of the ship and 2 holes in the back. So they're only seeing the water come over, and it's not coming anywhere near them, so they don't think it's come. But we think it's bad. So the guy would say, Charlie, they're not listening to me. I said, listen, put me on. I said, you better call us to the flying bridge, because if you lose 2 seamen in the front that were washed overboard, I said, you'll be responsible. So they would call, okay, let's go to the flying bridge.
I love your style, Charlie.
So when we went to the flying bridge, we were right next to them, but they were enclosed on the bridge. We were in the open. We hung out over the water and looked for everything.
I always envision when you're in a convoy, there's sort of a zigzag approach. Did that?
Not really.
No.
No. I mean, you can't zigzag. 70 ships.
Yeah.
You have your. I mean, they try and run, but they're going to run for a period of time one way. Because the whole 70 ships have to go. You can't zigzag. You can only zigzag if you were attacked and you're close in, and you were being attacked by aircraft or something. But submarines, you couldn't do that zigzag.
So how long would it take you to go from Baltimore, then you join up in a convoy, and then you ended up splitting off and going to India?
Yeah.
How long a time period is that?
Well, I would say we left in January, the beginning of January.
45?
And 45. We left in January, and we got the first month we were across the Atlantic, and we were now heading into the Mediterranean. So by the time we got to India and up the thing, I would say it was 3 months anyway.
Well, so
I mean, altogether, going across the Atlantic through Suez Canal, we go through the Suez Canal and everything like that.
how were you learning about how the war is progressing? Was on ship? Was there radio? Was there a newspaper? Was there something?
No, we never heard anything.
Really?
We never heard anything.
So you really didn't know how things were progressing?
No.
Interesting. So then you get to India, you drop off your load. Did you able to spend time in India?
We were in only about 2 weeks, and they unloaded it. And I used to have to tell them, I said, the Indians are starving, So they're filling empty bags in the bottom of the hole, and filling the bag and sewing up the top thing. And I see one spills on the bow of it's going into a street, and it's a railroad. They're going to put it up on the river. I said to the guy who speaks English, he's the Indian representative. I said, listen, you tell them I don't want to see I don't want to see a bag of rice spilled on that deck, because that ain't a mistake. That's been done. That's been done cleverly. Supposedly it wasn't sold right, you know, that particular bag, and then they'd get the whole 80 pounds of bag. So I said, as long as I'm on the guard duty and you're leaving the ship, we're just still now, just unloading. I said, when you're coming by, you can come by with a bandito, you know, handkerchief, you know, big handkerchiefs, and they could get a pound of rice. So I said, you can take a rice before around me all on time. I'm on guard duty. Don't worry about it. That's no problem. But you ain't gonna spill the rice and stuff that we're supposed to be providing the soldiers with. I says, you gotta do right. So he'd tell the guys. He says you can go by, you know. He spoke English, this guy. I says, and sure enough, I never had any trouble. As long as we were in that port, they emptied the thing. They worked 12 hours in the hole each time, you know, shift, and all they made was like about 33 cents.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? For that 12 hours. That's how bad it was. I mean, in relation. But the 33 cents was a lot to them.
The natives, did they treat you well?
Oh yeah, I never had any trouble with
Yeah.
the natives, you know. I mean, and they have what they call the untouchables. But you wouldn't know that, you know. Like the untouchables, even up to recently, couldn't, what do you call it? They do the lousiest jobs in India.
Yeah.
Well, they become a union. Now, they got more damn union things that if they're going to get the lousiest job, they're going to have to pay. Nobody wants to do the job, and they're the only ones who are doing it.
Yeah.
So they start raising their own wages. Again, inside of India, I mean, I've seen that's happened since I was there.
Yeah, the caste system, yeah.
Like I'd go into town, there were clubs there that were all run by British things, and there was no too much interaction with Indians. The only thing they did was there was always an overhang of the building over the sidewalk,
Right.
and the Indians would sleep there in the night. You know, that was a nice place because you were against the weather, you were safe, and you could sleep there. You know, under there. But as far as I wouldn't be only in there during the daytime, so I'd only be in and out back to my ship wherever, you know, when I was there.
Because that's right, India was governed by the British at that point.
Yeah.
It was a colony.
The Australians, the bars couldn't be open past 6 o'clock at night because there was no men in the country. All the Australian men of any age were in fighting in Africa, North Africa, to keep Rommel from getting the Suez.
Right.
So that was a constant thing. So they were in there to protect that. So there was hardly anything. So you could get all kinds of dates called up. The girls had to have somebody to go out with.
Terrible job. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. If you want to talk about it, that's okay. We'll listen.
well, after the war, I mean, the British brides from Britain itself were tremendous numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they didn't know what Kentucky looked like or anything like that. So that would be a shock to them when they come over, because thinking you have everything. Yeah, sure, they see it in the big cities, but you won't see it out wherever they are in Kentucky at that time.
Yeah, this is sort of March of 1945. Franklin Roosevelt dies.
Yeah.
President Roosevelt dies. Do you remember getting word of that and the reaction?
Oh yeah. I remember it. You know, that was a surprise when that happened.
Yeah. So did they just announce it on the ship? And
We just knew that it happened. You know, and I know the people. I'll tell you the truth. the people we had guys from Maine and different places like that, and they were shocked because they thought he was the greatest man that ever lived, because he put them in good shape, with various things, the way crops were raised and different things inside the country. Like when I was in Manila, all the forces of the British Empire was moving from Britain into the Pacific, because they wanted to reclaim their things that they had control of, So we had aircraft four aircraft carriers and everything like that coming in, and they were going to be in the new invasion of Japan.
Right. Were you celebrating at all? Was there anything on the ship?
We didn't have anything to celebrate with. Now, one time, now we brought, like one time we had a cargo of wine and beer, and we were taking it out of out of Australia, and we were bringing it up to the Australians that were going to invade Borneo. Mm-hmm. And so they were 6 weeks behind in their, they were entitled to I would say 2 quarts a week, but it was beer, not whiskey. Now, we also were carrying whiskey for the Air Corps, so that was a different thing altogether. So the officers and the guys who had flyers, they had whiskey that came that way too. But when we brought this stuff up, you never seen people get beer off a ship quicker. They were working right around the clock to get the stuff. Of course, they were supposed, now they wouldn't give them the whole 12 bottles at once, but they rationed it a little bit till they caught up with what they owed the thing. But you're supposed to get, they were supposed to get 2 quarts a week, and they called it a liter.
Okay.
They said a liter. A liter was 33 and a half ounces or something like that. So, when that was on our ship, it was on our ship for 3 weeks before we got the stuff up to the next island. It was 3 weeks to get there, this Biak. So we bring up the stuff and they unload the stuff. And then the Marine Corps was going to cover them with air power, when they invaded. Well, Borneo is probably the biggest island inside of Indonesia, and the most undeveloped island at that time when I was there, when I was in that area. Mm-hmm. So, but like when we passed by, I think we were going from India to Australia. We had to go by Java, Sumatra, and some other, I'm trying to think, big islands. And these were big islands in their sense, where they had 70 million people on one of them, you know what I mean? They were big islands for that thing. But Borneo was an undeveloped island, which made them look like a peanut. Yeah. But that was the key island of and today, no doubt, is a big lead in Indonesia because it was the most undeveloped. They had animals in there that the people thought would never existed, and they found them in that island.
Again, you're unloading all of your supplies in India. Where did you pick up new supplies to then take it to the Pacific?
Well, they'd send us to a place and we'd move. They'd send us into a place that had, like if they had too much weapons and they want to move them up.
Okay.
They'd send us in and say, we go to such and such, and we went to Halandria, which is New Guinea, which is the biggest island off northern, off that island. When these guys were on the ship, they wanted to go hunting souvenirs. So they go out. Now, I don't go out because I'm not a damn fool. So none to do them. They get about 10 guys, and some of Navy, and a few Navy guys, and the others are Merchant Marine. That's our crew, part of our crew. So they want to go in. So they go in. Well, the idea is, this island ain't cleared. That it's the Japs say, oh God, they've eliminated their problem, but they haven't hunted out every Jap that's on the island. So out they go. Well, in nothing flat, the Army brings these guys back, and they're yelling, "We're Americans," because there was guys out there who were a squad. Brought them back to our ship and said, as long as you're in here, those men are not to leave this ship. And the pack of damn fools out looking for silver. Like I say, other than that, I was Bougainville, New Georgia. Every damn island imaginable I was on. And in fact, one island I was on, they said there was so much ammunition on the island it would blow the island to Kingdom Come.
I got it.
They said if the island never got hit, and that's we were pulling it out. We're pulling it out by the thing with the 300-pound bombers, and everything's out in the open. It's only that you're controlling the area, that you don't let that nobody's in the area that threatens that island.
So you were basically taking 300-pound bombs and 15 caliber ammunition, all getting towards the island, sort of.
Moving them up
towards Japan.
Yeah, towards Japan. That's right.
So they could
up to that. That was our final thing.
What was your final?
The final thing was getting into the Philippines.
Philippines.
We got into the Philippines.
So you're there in the Philippines, and all of a sudden there's an announcement: Japan surrenders.
Yeah. Well, and then once those two bombs went, was nothing. I mean, the idea was, they were wondering who's going to go up to, take over Japan. So they never sent anybody under a lieutenant into Japan who fought against them. Only officers and fresh troops that had never fought against them at all. Victory ship. And they were 17,000-ton victory ships, whereas I was only a 10,000-ton Liberty ship. But the new ship was a Liberty ship. And they bring them in, and so when they brought them up, they brought all these guys up to Japan. They all had new uniforms, and they were in good shape, because they hadn't seen any combat or anything. But the idea was they would impress the Japanese.
Sure,
There's a bunch of guys, all well dressed.
Good optics. Good optics.
Were they also concerned that the veterans might get a little antsy around
Well, that's why they wouldn't let them go up there. Anybody who fought the Japs in the islands, they never brought them up into Japan. Because it's common sense, it would have been terrible. You would have had fights, and the guns would have been going off. Guys would have been killing too many people. So that's why they never had any trouble. The only people that ever went in to Japan were people who never fought at all. They were just fresh troops that had been put into the service and had never been anywhere yet. And then they moved them up into
I didn't know that.
that area.
How did you learn about the two atomic bombs going off?
Oh, we learned about that. That we had a guy in where I am, and he was, when they took him, he was a Marine officer, and he went up to. They sent him up from Japan, from the Philippines to Japan, a month after the bombs were blown up, and he always had to have gloves, whether it was winter or summer or anything. He always had his hands were always cold from going up into that area, and whatever it was that affected him, he was put up there a month after the bombs were exploded. And it affected him from being in there.
Affected a lot of people. They were just, they were really put in harm's way.
The radiation, right?
Irradiation, exactly. And,
Yeah.
a guy up in Mayville had the same issue. So now the war ends, and you don't have to move any more stuff, do you?
Yeah, no, I don't have to move any. It was just so then they got beer ships, and they put a beer ship in, and they put a beer ship in with whiskey and with. So I said, "Oh, we're right next to the guy." The guy comes on our ship. He says, "Fellas, we got all the beer in the world right on that ship. It's just a matter of going out." So they put Filipino people to protect it. And they put an American officer in charge. So the Filipinos didn't give a damn what you did because they ain't gonna get a fight. They ain't gonna get in a fight with you. So we'd pass up cases of beer up to our ship. Like we had 35 cases of beer. This was we were heading back to the States then.
And how many men on the ship?
Well, there was just about 35 of us.
Oh.
We had a party. We had a party the first night the ship left, and we drank seven cases of beer, 7 cases of beer, and then the rest we gave each group got 7 cases of beer for them, and so it wound up. They were putting it in the refrigerator and chilling it one at a time. Because they come in and put their beer and just hope that nobody steals their beer. You know, because of course when we were coming back, they converted our Liberty ship to a troop ship.
Mm-hmm.
And we took on 1,250 men.
Oh my gosh.
1,250 men. But what happened was, they did the bunks, you know, they just took holes and built 2x4s, lumber. But they didn't put any supports in the middle. So the guys were falling through the thing. So with us, we had regular beds. So I had, these guys were, what do you call it? They weren't officers, but they were the highest in the thing.
NCOs.
They were all kinds of sergeants, you know,
Yeah.
which I didn't know which one. So I said, look, they said, look, I can lend you my bed, but I'm gonna sleep there from 12 to 8, you know, or up, maybe earlier I'll get up, but after that you can do, but you gotta leave portholes open leave all the portholes open so that the thing gets plenty of air, because we had 6 or 8 beds in each of these spots, you know, and that worked out. They would go and get 4 hours sleep in the course of the day, and the Army did all the baking. When we weren't using the equipment, they were baking for the 1,250.
Well, so now you're a troop ship. Where you're heading towards?
We're heading for San Francisco.
Do you remember going through the Golden Gate Bridge?
Yeah, I remember.
Tell me about that.
I'll tell you what. I went through the Golden Gate Bridge, and we got there about the beginning of. It would be the beginning of November, and out comes a ferry boat, and it's got dancing girls, and a band, and everything, and they're doing it. And I says, "Holy good God! Would you believe that they have this? That we're a benefit? It wasn't for us. It was for an aircraft carrier that just went under the bridge, and they had 5,000 men on top of their normal thing that they were bringing back, Navy personnel in whites up on top of the flight. It was fun. The ferry boat went right down to.
It went right by you.
Went right by us.
That's funny. That's funny. Here you are at the Golden Gate. You're expecting, fireworks and all this stuff because that's your first vision of America.
And it's bright. It's bright. I mean, it's a nice day, a lovely day. I said, holy good God, look at that.
Get put
Look,
in place real
look,
fast.
I'm looking up to see the guys up on the deck of the aircraft carrier.
Oh my God, that's funny. So you get to San Francisco and you spend time there?
I didn't spend too long. What I said, I want to get home for Christmas, and it was getting. I'd been there a couple of weeks, and they said I got to get home for Christmas. So did everybody else, you know. So I said, but I'm going to find a way out of here. And there was no such thing as flying or anything out of there. I mean, any place that was there, people had all kinds of reserved this. So we went, I said, I'll get a cabbie. And the cabbie says, listen, they're making up a train down here, and all you gotta do, pay $5 a piece extra for the ticket. $5 extra for the ticket, for each ticket. I says, we need 8 tickets, and I didn't have a sou. I didn't have a sou because I didn't have any money to pay. So my friend, who I said, get whatever money you need to get, and when I get into New York City, I'll mail you back the money. So by the time I got home, it took us 5 days to come home on this old rickety train, because we had to pull to the sidelines for the main trains to go up. So we could only go down on the station as we pulled into them and get ham sandwiches or a drink, your soda or something like that. And I'd get down and get 20 ham sandwiches for $1 a piece they were. $1 a piece, we get 20 ham sandwiches. I says, we had no need to worry. Somebody will want them for we weren't only charging the same $1. You just paid $1 for that. So we'd give among the crew. And that was what this train brought us to Chicago. Then we got on another train going from Chicago to New York City. And I was okay, and my friend, we got the tickets, and I wound up owing him $210. I was sure as shooting. I got my money. I sent him Western Union $210. He had his $210, and then of course I met him when we all come back to the regular base. I was in Brooklyn at that time. We operated out of Brooklyn. The actual.
Was that the Navy Yard?
The
Navy Yard?
The Navy Yard We controlled the Pier 92, which was the Italian pier on the Hudson River. Was not, but there was no. I mean, so on that pier, they had an old battleship, and a thing, and you'd have guys out there breaking eggs with their hands. Breaking had 2 eggs for everybody, sunny side up, and they'd have a box full of stand, and then when they got tired, they'd put other guys there who could do the same thing. They could serve 6,600 men were on that island.
So you mustered out, and then you come home.
Then they come home.
Tell me about when you walked in the door and your family saw you for the first time.
Well, you see, I had never sent a letter home.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
I had never sent a letter home, because what happened was I sent a letter, and this was when I was in Suez. I sent a letter home, and I didn't know the officer was reading my letter. I thought the letters went somewhere, and people read them, and they did whatever they wanted to do. Not censor them. But I didn't think our officer. So I said, you cut this all to ribbons. No, I didn't put anything secret in this thing but I said, I'll never send another letter. You'll never be able to censor another letter of mine.
Yeah, that'll teach your family, yeah.
Well, that's the way I went. And then they didn't see me till I come through the door.
So what was their reaction? You just show up and there you are.
Oh, they were just happy to see me.
Yeah.
And they would say to me, go around, whenever I was home normally, I mean, this was previous to the war, and whenever I was home, they would say, Charlie, go around to the delicatessen. You could get ham sandwiches or ham, half a pound, and you don't need stamps or anything. I would go around and I get half a pound. My mother would say, you go around and get us all without stamps.
You know, and when people ask you about serving in World War II and how do you feel, you know, your emotions, what do you tell them?
I always tell them that's what you had to do. You know, you had to do it. I mean, that's how I voted. That's how I joined the Navy. I joined the Navy because you had to go into something. I was going to be drafted, and they could stick me in anything.
By the way, this is unbelievable. We're just so thrilled, Charlie, to have had a chance to share with us and us to listen your experiences during World War II. We salute you.
No, but
Thank you.
The only thing that happened on the ship by error, when we went into a friendly port, we didn't load the 45 because we were in a friendly port. So when we were in unfriendly, the 45 was always loaded. So nothing to do with, the guy thinks, we're in a friendly port. The guy thinks the gun ain't loaded. And it is. He don't know it. And he cocks the gun and he points it at one of the guys. And he's sitting on a truck 30 feet away. He put it on the truck and the guy says, he was from Brooklyn, who knew better about guns. He says, you point that damn gun at me, I'll kill you. Because he no doubt seen guns in Brooklyn. Because he might have not seen things or heard of. So he says, so nothing to do him. The guy had already cocked the gun, 45. He shoots it. It goes through his dungarees from the top and goes out the bottom without scratching his leg.
Oh my gosh.
And when he does that, I grab a hold of the guy so he don't shoot again. Because he's panicked. He don't know what the hell just happened to him. So hold him, another guy come, take the gun off him. Get the gun off him. And then of course, we never sailed into a place that a gun wasn't loaded. There was no such thing as a friendly thing. The gun is always loaded, and that is it. Had he pulled the trigger and the guy was on the thing, he would have killed the guy.